Hello, Netheads. Hello, Black Box Battalion. Today is Monday. No, today's not Monday. I guess I'm just in the habit of saying that. Today is Thursday, another Dahlia Thursday. Welcome to the show. How's everybody doing? I used to come live with you guys every Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, starting a little bit earlier today, but we're also going to be talking all about the Zodiac and the Black Dahlia, so I thought that it was a very nice way of coming together. But yes, my name is Black Box, and I am the host of Dahlia Thursday. On Thursdays, I talk to you guys about the Black Dahlia murder, one of the most horrific crimes in American history. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking about some of the recent Zodiac killer news and how it can be connected to the Black Dahlia case, as well as William J. Mann's book is coming out. And if anybody is coming in now, just let me know in the chat. Can you hear me okay? Can you see me okay? And how is everything going there? And by the way, you guys will see something. Today, because this is a live stream, we have a return of Snoopy. I no longer have the Fox, but we do have a return of Snoopy here to all the listeners of Black Box Online Radio. So the first thing that I would like to do for you guys is to pick up with last week's Zodiac Monday. On the Monday show, I was talking to you about a possible solution to the Zodiac Killer's Z32 cipher that was created by Paul Brookbanks and Alex Baber independently. And the Zodiac Killer's Z32 cipher may have been solved. Longtime listeners of BBOR will know that I don't really like a lot of the solutions that have been proposed, or sometimes somebody has something that is coherent, but it's still not fitting like a glove. And the most recent solution that has been proposed has been the one by Alex Baber and Paul Brookbanks at 4 radians and 3 inches to the Zodiac Killer's final confirmed cipher. And I'm going to be very honest with you guys. I think that this is a pretty good one. I think that it's something that genuinely could be what the Zodiac Killer created and put into the cipher. And I mean, I don't want to go as far as to say that I'm 100% certain, but 2 researchers from different parts of the world came to the same conclusion. That is something that I think should carry some weight. And I just noticed that Killer in the Code, the podcast that is talking about Alex Baber's material, released episode 5. I just got the notification 20 minutes before this live stream. I'm up to episode 4, and they revealed their solution to the Z32 cipher in episode 3. And it was just an afterthought. It was like the final minute of the podcast. They were saying, oh yeah, but we also solved the Zodiac Killer Z32 cipher. It's estimate 4 radians and 3 inches. And guess what? It goes to the gravesite short. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. You're only spending like 1 minute on this solution to the Z32 cipher. I thought that this was going to be the heart and soul of the entire Killer in the Code. I mean, Killer in the Code, right? I thought that this was going to be one of the core elements of this theory that is involving the Zodiac Black Dahlia connection that has been proposed by Alex Baber, but it's not. It's an afterthought, really. But let's be clear about some things. I think that there are certain things that are very defendable about the solution to the Z32 cipher, but when you use 4 radians and 3 inches, Paul Brookbanks, my guest from the Monday show, told me that it's bang on for the Oakland Coliseum. You might remember the Sphere the Cube videos when he was also talking about a solution that goes to the Oakland Coliseum. And ultimately, I really thought that that's what Alex Baber was going to say. I really thought that. But Elizabeth Short, the victim in the Black Dahlia murder, was buried in the Mountain View Cemetery in Oakland, California. So that is one thing. And as Paul went over very clearly in the episode, yes, it does work out. It does work out to this general area, but like there's an enormous amount of land that is going to be covered in this possible Z32 solution. And Papa is here saying, hello to you too, Papa. EZZ says, nice, a BBOR live. Yes, absolutely. You guys get a cheers from Snoopy. And yes, everybody let me know, can you see me, can you hear me? And yes, hi to you too. Let me know if the sound is okay for this live stream. But what is the difference between having a solution that goes to the Oakland Coliseum versus one that goes to the gravesite of Elizabeth Short? I put this stuff into Google Maps, and it's hardly across the street or down the road. It's 2 hours and 43 minutes by foot from the Oakland Coliseum to the cemetery where Elizabeth Short is buried, the Mountain View Cemetery. A very substantial distance. 2 hours and 43 minutes by foot and 14 minutes by car. Professor Chad is here. Hello, Professor Chad. All right, that's good to hear, Easy. And this is telling me that there is an enormous amount of land that is within this possible range for the Z32 cipher. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Even if the Z32 has been solved, estimate 4 radians and 3 inches, even if that actually comes out to be the correct solution, that doesn't mean that this Black Dahlia stuff is true. No, that just means that there is something in the Oakland area, in the Oakland metropolitan area, the greater Oakland area, that fits into the Zodiac Killer cipher. It does not have to be permanently the cemetery, or it's not fixed on the cemetery. And you might even see this from the very beginning. Because what did the Zodiac Killer tell us when he was planning and creating the Z32? It concerns radians and inches along the radians. And if it's along the radians, that means you might have a very large amount to search through. You guys can let me know if you think that the Z32 cipher has been solved. I mean, I might actually say that this is the best solution that I have personally heard. Of course, we don't know exactly what the Zodiac was thinking because the Z32 is so short and there are so few repeating symbols that maybe it's going to be very difficult to verify or get the FBI to sign off on. But I am going to read some things for you guys. This is almost like your comments from last week's Zodiac Monday. Technically, this week's Zodiac Monday. This is from Jason4010. The Zodiac explicitly instructs investigators to use radians, a higher-level mathematical unit uncommon in casual use. I agree completely. He also instructed us to use magnetic north, inches measured along the radians. When the derived radial line is extended, it passes through or near multiple law enforcement and authority symbols. Yes, okay, this is what people were saying for a very long time. They thought the solution to the Z32 cipher was not the gravesite of Elizabeth Short or the Mountain View Cemetery. They thought that it was the police station, like he's making a threat to the police. And that is not some type of baseless accusation. That is not a type of nonsensical accusation for the following reason. When the Zodiac Killer mailed his third cipher, the Z13, he talked about the bombing of what? A police station. The Park Station. I mean, like what he said was, I hope you think I'm not the one who did in the blue meanie with a bomb, even though there's more glory in killing a cop than killing a Sid, because a cop can shoot back. And he meant kid, but he spelled it Sid. That was talking about the bombing of the Park Police Station that killed Officer Brian McDonald. So for him to talk about a threat in his fourth cipher where he's planning to bomb a police station, you can see where it's going. You know, it's almost like hypocrisy. I can do no wrong. And Rohit Chowdhury is here. He says, egg face. Well, I'm not sure if you mean me or something else. Maybe you mean that Snoopy has an egg-shaped face. It almost looks like 2 eggs or 3 eggs put together for Snoopy. Well, hello, Rohit. Welcome to come on in. Please feel free to ask anything about the Zodiac Killer or the Black Dahlia. Now, let's keep going here with Jason's comment. The Z32 and the Phillips 66 map are not failed instructions, but successful taunts. The bomb was never meant to be found. I agree completely, by the way. The Zodiac used mathematics and cartography as theater, and he was creating a puzzle that could be followed indefinitely without any resolution. The real payload was psychological, fear, confusion, and the spectacle of law enforcement chasing a phantom. In short, the map was the weapon, not a guide to one. Yes, this is what I think. For a very long time, I thought that the bomb was not real. But when you look at Alex Baber's solution and Paul Brookbanks' solution, they're together, estimate 4 radians and 3 inches. And like I told you, we're talking about hours of distance apart. Like if you were to walk this, it would take you hours. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean coming together? that this could be anywhere in the Oakland metropolitan area. It's just pointing you toward Oakland, California. So how would you know where to go or which place in Oakland to search? It creates the psychological illusion of terror. So I mean, I'm mostly on point with that. And it seems like there are a few different maybe nuances or characteristics that have been shared by Jason here, but overall, I am mostly on point with that. And I would like, though, to look at some of the other questions and comments here. We have one from Dreams on Plastic who says, off topic, but any thoughts to having Michael Butterfield on to discuss his new book? Oh, yes, I have. I interviewed Michael Butterfield when he was doing a preview for his book, The Zodiac Killer, The Search for America's Most Elusive Murderer. Did I get it right, or is it the story of America's Most Elusive Murderer? I always flip it in my mind. I interviewed him when he did a preview for his book, and that interview is still online here. That's called Zodiac Killer Facts with Michael Butterfield. And then there is also the one that I did with him right after the book came out. You can still get both of them. They're older episodes of Zodiac Monday with Michael Butterfield's name in the title. And then we have Jeff Witcherly, who says, all the codes go right over my head, but interesting all the same. Yes, yes. I mean, when I started looking at the Z32, everything went over my head. Even when I first tried to watch the Paulscape 72 videos that were made by Paul Brookbanks, a lot of that stuff went over my head too. I mean, it was some very challenging stuff, but at the same time, I didn't want to give up. And I think after talking to Paul, and Paul and I, of course, bonded a lot about this possible solution to the Z32, and his other observations are, really good. After talking to him a lot, I think we have a better understanding, or I have a better understanding of it. And that is that, firstly, the Zodiac clued us into the words radians and inches. And you can decode this by using symbols from his previous ciphers, the Z408 and the Z340. And then you can put those into the Z32 and almost use radians and inches as a way to decode. And this gives you the word estimate. Estimate is clued in by repeating characters, estimate blank radians and blank inches. So then you just need to know the number of the radians. And as Paul stated very clearly in the interview, that you can't necessarily use any number because the Zodiac says that it's the map coupled with the code. So then that means that it should be somewhere on the map. 9 radians would be off the map, but at the same time, also something like 13 radians would not fit the number of symbols. So they came up with estimate 4 radians and 3 inches. And, it's not something that I think you can just digest in one day. Before the Zodiac Killer mystery, I had never heard of a radian. I think that's exactly what Jason wrote out in his comment here. And this is that it's going to be something about how it's just an empty taunt and threat. And Mystery Junkie is here. Wow, Mystery Junkie with a super chat. Hey, thank you so much for that, Mystery Junkie. And yes, of course, you guys know all about that. To get you a shout out on Zodiac Monday. And I was going to say something about the buymeacoffee.com page, but I don't think we need to focus too much on that right now. But I would like to talk to you guys about some other things that are in the world. And in the world of Black Dahlia, there is a new book coming out from William J. Mann called Black Dahlia, Murder, Monsters, and Madness in Mid-Century Hollywood. Murder, Monsters, and Madness in Mid-Century Hollywood. Wow, William J. Mann is giving us a tongue twister for the title of the book. And I'm going to say something about this in a second, but I started Dahlia Thursday on Black Box Online Radio about 6 months ago. I mean, I decided to talk about this because I've always been more curious about the Black Dahlia. I've never done a deep dive into the mystery until maybe about 6 months ago. Then what happened? I didn't know the future. Completely unbeknownst to me, Black Dahlia news has been just coming out left and right. Firstly, we had the release of Eli Frankel's book, Sisters in Death, which talks about a Black Dahlia suspect named Carl Balsiger, who was from the Midwest. And he's saying that there was this connection between a murder in 1941, the Prairie Heiress murder of Layla Welsh, and the Black Dahlia, that there's the same killer. It's the Prairie Heiress hunter and the Black Dahlia coming together. And, okay, that happened in the fall. Then in the wintertime, 2 days before Christmas, We have the Killer in the Code podcast coming out and going very public, and they're saying that, well, it's okay. It's not the Prairie Heiress Hunter and the Black Dahlia Avenger that are coming together. It's the Black Dahlia Avenger and the Zodiac Killer coming together. And one of the first comments that I saw from somebody was they were saying, wait a second. I thought this case was solved 4 months ago. So that's a podcast that has come out, from Michael Connolly talking about the works of Alex Baber. And then we now have another book that has been planned for a very long time. It's still in the pre-order format, but I look forward to reading this one all the same, even if I am a little bit skeptical. And that is William J. Mann's tongue twister book, Murder, Monsters, and Madness in Mid-Century Hollywood. I'm going to practice saying this, so when I do this on my pre-recorded episodes, I can really get it down. That's one of the disadvantages of going live. When you cannot say a tongue twister, everybody will know. But which theory do we go with? Which Black Dahlia book or podcast is telling the truth? Is there a Zodiac Killer connection? And I think, as you have just heard from me, I'm saying that this Zodiac connection is, just a giant question mark. It's like, are you sure? Are you sure that all of these clues in the Zodiac Killer mystery are actually pointing toward the Black Dahlia? And the same is true with the Prairie Heiress Hunter. If you go to my episode, Sisters in Death here, where I was talking about Eli Frankel's book, I'm also saying an exact paraphrase of the same things. Are you sure that everything in the connection between the Black Dahlia Avenger and the Prairie Heiress Hunter is true? Because these interconnections among high-profile true crime cases do not sit very well with me. And I'll talk to you about William J. Mann's book in just a second. But one final thing about the Zodiac Killer in the Code. So there's a lot to say about Killer in the Code. They revealed their solution to the Z13 cipher, which is Marvin Merrill. Their suspect is named Marvin Margolis. He changed his name to Marvin Merrill. You probably have heard it somewhere in the news, right? So then, and how did they do this exactly? Well, as I pointed out on Zodiac Monday, if you just scramble the name Marvin Merrill, the letters do match up with the 13 symbols in the Zodiac cipher. 13 symbols in Marvin Merrill, 13 symbols in the Z13. And Easy says, yes, the 2 recent Michael Butterfield interviews were good. Hey, cheers, Easy. And yes, I interviewed him when his new book came out, and it was a 2-parter. But so many things that he was saying about the Z13 cipher, I felt were irrelevant. He's like, the way you decode this to Marvin Merrill is you have to write the word Elizabeth on, and then you start matching letters to the name Elizabeth to the 13 symbols from the Zodiac. And I'm just thinking, whoa. You don't need to do that. Marvin Merrill, 13 letters. The letters do line up. There are 3 R's in Marvin Merrill, 3 8s in the Zodiac cipher. There are 2 L's. There are 2 N's in the Zodiac cipher. So, it matches up. Everything that he said about the Z13 cipher was just the equivalent of taking an orange, pulling off all of the peel, removing the sections, rearranging them in any way you want, and then putting it back together. It's all unnecessary. He's adding unnecessary steps with that. I'm like, you unscramble it. If you knew which name to look for, which they did, as we've seen very clearly. And Fire Pixie is here. Fire Pixie is saying, gotta go to work. I just wanted to come by and say hi, Ned. Hey, Fire Pixie. Well, I hope you can watch this later on. And Fire Pixie used to tune in every Tuesday and Thursday for True Crime Talk Radio in the morning with me, Black Box Ned. One more time, you can hit the like button and subscribe. Oh, yes, and Fire Pixie was a regular listener, along with Charlie Don't Serve, Dark Side of the Moon. I love all you guys. And, sometimes it is nice to go live and to talk about some of these things. But let's look at some of this other stuff here. This is going to be what's going to be covered in William J. Mann's upcoming Tongue Twister book. Good morning, Dr. Casbah. The brutal murder of Elizabeth Short, better known as the Black Dahlia, in 1947, has been in the public consciousness for nearly 80 years. Yet no serious study of the crime has ever been published. That's the description of this book that's going to be coming out. No serious study of the crime has ever been published? Well, I just told you, Eli Frankel released a book. Michael Connelly released the podcast. Now, I don't know if he's borrowing some stuff from John Gilmore, who wrote the book Severed, the first book about the Black Dahlia case. Thanks for the Hearts Fire Pixie, by the way. Thanks. I see them. And it's like, if you read John Gilmore's book Severed, he also does something very similar, where he discredits all of the other writers from the past and says, no, only I am writing the truth about the Black Dahlia. Only I am telling you the truth. But it's also very weird because in the introduction to John Gilmore's book, he also says, I'm not going to lie to you. This case is not going to be solved ever. So here's my analysis. I'm like, whoa. Okay, then what exactly are you doing with us? Hey, Dreams on Plastic, late to the show. Hey, no worries, no worries. You can get a cheers from Snoopy. We are just talking about the Zodiac Black Dahlia connection, all things Zodiac related, all things Black Dahlia related. But anyway, according to William J. Mann, nobody's ever done a serious study of the Black Dahlia case before. If you're going to be arrogant like that, you better be able to back it up. So let's see what happens. Opera Fiend is here saying, hi, Ned, good to see you live again. More of these, please. I'm going to try my best. Let's keep going with this description. Elizabeth Short has been mischaracterized as a wayward sex worker or a vagabond, and like the seductive femme fatales of film noir, responsible for and deserving of her fate. Now, even though I was being critical of some things from William J. Mann, I do completely agree with this. Out of all the cases that I talk about on Black Box Online Radio, whether it's the Zodiac Killer or Jack the Ripper, it's the Black Dahlia case where there's the most amount of victim shaming, where there's the most amount of blaming the victim or saying that it's her fault, insults, weird theories, saying that she was working as a prostitute. I mean, in the time that I spent following the Black Dahlia case, which is only about 7, I've never once seen or heard anything that would indicate that she actually was a sex worker. I think that all of that stuff that you will read online is made up. And is there evidence to support that Elizabeth Short was not working as a prostitute or sex worker? Absolutely, yes. Yes. And a lot of this stuff has been unearthed because of the investigations into this Marvin Merrill suspect. Marvin Merrill has been accused of being the Zodiac Killer and the Black Dahlia because he was a real Black Dahlia suspect. And at the time, he was using the name Marvin Margolis. But when you read the stories about him, I mean, he didn't actually have any type of relations with Elizabeth Short in the stories and the testimonials and the case files, all of that stuff. First we have one from Dr. Casbah saying there are several different videos about the Dahlia being the Dahlia Killer being the Zodiac. What do you think about that? Well, the honest answer is, Dr. Casbah, I think some people have a very big desire to tie a lot of this stuff together. I think a lot of people have a very big desire to connect high-profile true crime cases. And I'm not putting you down or anything, because I know you have a Zodiac Black Dahlia theory. But this desire to connect the cases can often overstep some of the evidence. Now, I will give credit to Jibber Jabber, JJ, who has been talking a lot about this in the comments section on Black Box Online Radio, and Jibber Jabber has some very articulate reasons as to why and how the cases could be connected. There are some strong points of evidence. We have Black Dahlia Avenger letters, we have Zodiac letters, we have the Black Dahlia Avenger persona, the Zodiac persona, but very different crimes all the same. And also, Dr. Casbah, you will agree with me as well. If somebody accuses their Zodiac Killer suspect of being the Black Dahlia Avenger, they will also accuse them of committing a host of other crimes, and there's almost no end. Zodiac 408 is here saying, hi, BBOR. Hi, Zodiac 408. How you doing? Mystery Junkie says, hasn't Steve Hodel already tried to connect the Black Dahlia murder to the Zodiac Killer, and nobody took him seriously? No, Mystery Junkie. No. I say this a lot. Nobody took him seriously. 3 people took him seriously, maybe 4. No, what I said was, during my years of doing Zodiac Monday, I may have been contacted by 3 or 4 people saying that they think that George Hodel actually was the Zodiac Killer. Instead, what you find is people are like, well, I mean, he's written, I mean, two books specifically that go into the Zodiac Black Dahlia connection. At the very least, they just want to know what the theory is. Like, it's curiosity killing the cat, but we don't actually endorse the theory. And if you ever watch the Larry Harnish live streams about the Black Dahlia, he'll openly call Steve Hodel a fraud. He says he made the whole thing up as a grift. Allegedly, allegedly, allegedly. I mean, I can't say anything like that because I don't know what he was thinking, but Larry Harnish has a bigger history with him than I do. Instead, I'm just like the Zodiac George Hodel connection, Zodiac Black Dahlia Avenger George Hodel connection really is not taken very seriously by a lot of people. 3 or 4 people believed it in the last 25 years. But anyway, I think, though, that the stories of Marvin Merrill is that he wanted to be intimate with Elizabeth Short, and she didn't want anything to do with him. And she was more or less perhaps trying to couch surf, and he may have had romantic interest with her. And to the credit of Alex Baber, I can understand how they're formulating the Black Dahlia theory. This Zodiac stuff? No, absolutely not. But this Black Dahlia thing about Marvin Margolis Merrill as a Black Dahlia suspect, I can get it a little bit. She spent 12 days in his apartment, and she slept on the couch. And according to the district attorney's files, he was trying to be intimate with her, but she rejected him. He didn't get any action from her. There's some words like that. Her friend was with her named Marjorie Graham. And Marjorie Graham was the one that was being pursued by the roommate of Marvin Margolis, whose name was Bill Robinson. And Marjorie Graham slept in Bill Robinson's room, but reportedly they didn't get intimate either, but she slept in his bed. So for 12 days, Marvin Margolis is, trying to do something with Elizabeth Short. She's sleeping on the couch. Young guy, like 21 years old, right? Is he feeling embarrassed, insulted, rejected somewhat? And did he not concoct some plan to murder her? Marvin Margolis was a medical student. He was a World War II veteran. And he was somebody who may have had some types of post-traumatic stress coming out of the war. I can understand how they're formulating this suspect profile for Marvin Margolis in the Black Dahlia case. But the Zodiac? No. As I told you, everything about the Zodiac ciphers just seems irrelevant to Marvin Merrill. The Z13 one I said was irrelevant. The Z32 one may have genuinely been solved. But that just puts you in the Oakland area. This whole thing about how it has to go to the Mountain View Cemetery, and the Zodiac was trying to guide us to the Mountain View Cemetery where Elizabeth Short was buried, all of that is just a mental leap, in my point. Is that the solution to the cipher? Mountain View Cemetery, resting place of Elizabeth Short. I killed her. My name is Marvin Merrill. Is that what the cipher reveals to? No. Estimate 4 radians and 3 inches. It doesn't actually give you that information. And to say that that is the only place where the Zodiac was guiding us, no. I'm not convinced by any of these Zodiac Marvin Merrill connections. And on the next Zodiac Monday, I'm not even going to be talking about Marvin Merrill anymore. In the Black Dahlia world, absolutely, because, he has his place in true crime history. He was an established Black Dahlia suspect. And I just told you I can comprehend the narrative. Everything else, Zodiac related, it's time to move on. Dr. Casbah says Jenny French was murdered during the Black Dahlia, and on her body were the words Tex. Yeah, Jenny French is murdered after the Black Dahlia. Dr. Casbah, what's the exact date on that? It's February, right? Because that was the story that took a lot of the headlines away from the Black Dahlia case. And Casbah also says, I'm not trying to argue with you, but maybe some of these people are right. The reason I say this is because no one's ever thought of it and no one's ever investigated it. Oh, okay, well, one person who did was William J. Mann. Let's see, what did William J. Mann says? He wrote the first serious study of the Black Dahlia case. Let's see if he's going to settle on the Zodiac killer mystery. That's exactly what William J. Mann was saying. And to be fair, yes, there are lots of books out there about the Zodiac Black Dahlia connection, about Ed Edwards as a Zodiac suspect, Black Dahlia suspect. I mean, Ed Edwards, George Hodel, Jack Torrance. Yeah, we went over those in the last Zodiac Black Dahlia live stream. There's a possibility that Zodiac tried to claim the Black Dahlia because he was a killer and he was narcissistic. What I've always wanted to know with that, Dr. Casbah, is, as I just told you, why not just say, I killed the Black Dahlia? Okay, you want to do something like that? I give you credit for stumbling upon my Riverside activity, but you're only getting the easy ones. There are a hell of a lot more down there. For example, the Black Dahlia. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do. And if he didn't do it, he would have a get out of jail free card. But the whole point, the entire point I was trying to make with this stuff is, I was just saying that the stuff about Elizabeth Short has been mischaracterized as a sex worker. I see no evidence of that. And it seems like she didn't even do anything with Marvin Margolis. It seems like she was somebody who was trying to go out with men so they would buy her free food. It seems like she was some guy that was she was some woman who was hanging around with guys so they would give her a free place to stay. We can debate the ethics of that later. And then ultimately, it really tarnished her reputation later on. People took advantage of that. And then they start saying these very inappropriate things about Elizabeth Short. They start making comments about how everybody knew that she wore black underwear, and that's why they call her the Black Dahlia. I believe it's mostly from her hair. I mean, I doubt the people who even said that ever saw her underwear at all. And she was found without clothes on. I mean, they're just trying to make fun of a victim because they think that it's more exciting in their own twisted, narcissistic minds. All right, so next point here. Using a 21st century lens, man connects Short's story to the anxious era after World War II, when the nation was grappling with new ideas, new demographics, and new technologies, and old fears dressed up as new ones. What's the thing we need to look at for this? What's the thing? Maybe the Black Dahlia Avenger was a World War II veteran with PTSD. Dr. Casbah is going to love this because you mentioned the Texarkana connection. With the Texarkana Phantom Killer, I also think that that's a reasonable possibility. That you're dealing with somebody who came back after the war, was not readjusting well. The Phantom Killer operated in 1946. I mean, this is right after World War II. So people are coming back. It's perhaps hard to readjust to civilian life. This was also in the Vietnam era. So people then begin to think that, okay, maybe this is somebody who's a veteran, who's dealing with mental health issues, which Marvin Margolis had, mind you, and they committed a very heinous murder. So that's the thing that I think we need to remember about the post-World War II era. The problem is, though, all guesswork. I mean, he talks about the demographics right here. I just read that word, demographics. A lot of men were in the military, and so on probability would be on the side of that. Okay, so we have one from Dr. Casbah that I'm going to scroll up on. Here's the thing. There are 3 or 4 girls that were killed during the Black Dahlia case, but there are no similarities between Jenny French and the Black Dahlia. Well, yes, but she was found outside, right? And I don't really know the most about Jenny French. I'll have to look that up in the future. There's a possibility the Zodiac tried to claim. Oh, yeah, I read that one. I don't think the Zodiac would have outright said, I killed her. I think he would have hinted at it in his notes and stuff, and that was the possibility that he could have killed her. Your guess is as good as mine. Now, Dr. Casbah, to give you some credit, they talked about this on the History Channel show, The Hunt for the Zodiac Killer, and that was when they were looking at how the opening line of the 340 cipher bears similarities to the Black Dahlia Avenger letters. And they weren't even saying that it's the same killer. They were saying they thought the Zodiac had read about the Black Dahlia case. But, I mean, there are similarities. I do give people credit for that. Dreams on Plastic says, I think people have a hard time believing the Black Dahlia was a single event and thus trying to connect them to Zodiac. It's hard to accept that the Black Dahlia Avenger wasn't a serial killer. It's so hard, yes. I mean, the only thing is, Dreams on Plastic, I guess I agree with Denise Diana Huddle when she said, there's no real crime that's identical to this. And even as Larry Harnish tells us very frequently, Only 5% of homicides are dismembering homicides where the body has been dismembered. Very rare. And even the Prairie Heiress Hunter mutilated Layla Welch. Her body's cut up, and she even had the flesh cut out of her leg the way Elizabeth Short did. I give credit to Eli Frankel for that, for making that observation and similarity. But, I mean, it's not identical. That's a crime that's involving these mutilations, but not identical. I mean, 5% of homicides are dismembering cases. And if anybody has any other observations about the similarities or differences between the Zodiac and the Black Dahlia Avenger, please drop them in the chat. I would love to read them. William J. Mann also says, using a 21st century lens, William Mann connects Short's story to the anxious after World War II era. Mann has strong opinions on who might have killed her, and even stronger ones on who did not. He spent 5 years sifting through the evidence, and he has found unknown connections by cross-referencing police reports with FBI files, court documents, military records, and more, using deep, intense research skills that have become his trademark. He also spoke with the families of the original detectives, of Short's friends, and even of suspects, and relied on advice from experienced physicians and homicide detectives. And one more time, I'm going to try to get this book title right. It's William J. Mann's Black Dahlia, Murder, Monsters, and Madness in Mid-Century Hollywood. If you are just joining the live stream right now, there's so many words here that begin with M. It took me 5 times to say that title right. William J. Mann loves the letter M, and he don't make me talk so good, so I'm going to stop all that right now. I don't even know if I'm going to read your book now, William Mann. I was actually really looking forward to this because it's a new Black Dahlia book, but if it's going to be full of tongue twisters and things that I can't pronounce too easily, maybe I won't. Let's see. And also, if you do want to hear more about this book, Seth Roshevsky will be doing an episode about it. This is on the Seth Roshevsky podcast. He did an excellent Black Dahlia episode on Eli Frankel and his book. And Will Huck is here saying, yay, Ned. Hey, hello, Will Huck. How you doing? Dr. Casbah says there's Short, Mondragon, Maldonado, and French. According to history, those are 4 girls that were killed in the Black Dahlia case. Okay. Now, you're more familiar with these stories than I am, Dr. Casbah, so I'm going to rely on you for some of this. However, what a lot of people say in the Black Dahlia world is they don't believe that the same killer killed Jenny French that killed Elizabeth Short. What do you make of that? And now, you guys can share anything you want about the Black Dahlia in the chat. Put in anything you want there. But I am going to talk to you about some of the recent Zodiac killer news. This is something that was shared, let's see, what day is today? This was shared yesterday on ZodiacKiller.com, and it's about one of the more popular Zodiac killer suspects out there. Not Marvin Margolis, not Margolis Merrill, no. This is about Donald Lee Cheney, and it was a new post that was written by Tom Voigt. And he tells the story of how Don Cheney was actually a suspect in a different set of serial homicides. Don Cheney, the world's worst serial killer suspect. And that's what this post is all about. Because this talks about how Donald Lee Cheney inserted himself into a different serial killer mystery. Don Cheney shared a quotation with Tom Voigt. Yeah, there's one thing, probably more than one thing. There's one thing that nobody ever asked me about. I had moved to the New Bedford area and taken a job in the 1980s, and my route to work made me a possible suspect in the New Bedford serial killer case. Now, on Zodiac Monday, I'm going to have to do a much bigger presentation on this, and I'm not even familiar with the New Bedford serial killer case, so there's a follow-up question here, and that says, you were a suspect in a murder case in New Bedford? Where exactly is that? Massachusetts? And it says, yeah. But Tom Voigt, did find out early on that there was a book that had been written about this. And I just love this part. This is my favorite part of the entire post. He found out this information by using Netscape Navigator. Are you old enough to remember Netscape? I am, but just barely by that. I was born in 1988, so I remember Netscape. I remember Prodigy, CompuServe. It was a different world back then. It was the Wild West. of the internet. So Tom Boyd found out on Netscape Navigator that there was a book called Killing Season, The Unsolved Case of New England's Deadliest Serial Killer. And sure enough, Don was right. There still was a serial killer at large at the time in New Bedford. The book was published in 1994 by a man named Carlton Smith, and he was living in the Seattle area at the time. So Tom Boyd contacted Carlton Smith, and Smith answered the phone, and he said, Don Chaney? Don Chaney? Yeah, that name is very familiar. Although, I have to wonder why he'd want it known that he was a murder suspect. In my experience, that's pretty weird. That's quite unusual. And if you want to read this full post, it's available on zodiackiller.com under the title of Don Chaney. It's the post January 14th, 2026. So this is definitely something that I'm going to look into in the future, but is this Don Chaney up to his old tricks, telling wild stories because he has some type of agenda? And it's not only Don Chaney, as you're going to see very early on with a lot of these true crime cases, even back to Jack the Ripper. People are going to make confessions to things. Mystery Junkie says the Cleveland murders are similar to the Black Dahlia. Don't know why nobody has connected them. That is the subject of the Crooked River series, Mystery Junkie, about the Cleveland torso murders being connected to the Black Dahlia case. And then, yes, the Zodiac case, but that's the Crooked River series. There are 3 volumes out, at least 3 volumes now, volumes 1, 2, and 3, about the about the serial killer that would have done all that. And the Zodiac one is called Zodiac, A Twisted Path to Paradise. And the Crooked River series is written by James Freeman. And you can find that, I think, only from his website. But, he's online everywhere, and also has a Crooked River Facebook page. Brian Scott says, Ned, you should definitely read the new William J. Mann Dahlia book. I was an ARC reader for it. The title is a little weird, but the book itself is not written in complicated language. Oh, Brian, I was joking. I know that's it's a bad habit of mine when I say something as a joke, but I sound completely serious. No, absolutely, I'm going to read it. I've wanted to know about this for quite some time because, it's always been on the horizon well before any of this Marvin Margolis stuff. I was waiting for the release of the William J. Mann book. Absolutely, I'm going to read it. But I also don't know what to expect exactly because with Eli Frankel's book, he was doing a lot of pre-interviews that I watched. I knew pretty much everything that he was going to say, with the exception of how Eli Frankel stated that he believes the body of Elizabeth Short was moved, and this is a secret piece of information that they have to identify the real Black Dahlia Avenger. And that's a hard thing to accept because he obtained this information by interviewing Betty Bersinger, the woman who found Elizabeth Short's body. And she was the first person to see the Black Dahlia. She's the one who thought that Elizabeth Short's body was a mannequin. And he claims that she told him that her body was 12 to 16 feet from the road, from the sidewalk. But when the body is photographed very clearly, it is completely in line with the sidewalk, right up against it. So Eli Frankel is saying that that's a secret piece of information that the police have. And my issue with that is he's not the only person to have interviewed Betty Bersinger. Larry Harnish interviewed her, and he said, absolutely not. She never said any of that stuff to me. It's not right at all. Betty Bersinger has also been quoted in some of the other Black Dahlia books that I've been looking at throughout the duration of Dahlia Thursday. They say nothing about this, that this is the secret piece of information that the police were using to try and catch the real killer. Okay, huh? Oh, yeah, you did it, huh? Well, where was the body? And, it's like to make sure they have the right person. They're holding something back from the general public. Well, it doesn't seem like she said that information to everybody. Maybe she did, though, and it all just went over their heads. Because that's more or less the way that Eli Frankel has presented it in his interviews. He's like, Betty Bersinger said she's been telling everybody this, and they just weren't necessarily paying attention. But I would like to ask you guys a challenge question, and that is, why would somebody put themselves into a true crime case if they were innocent. We have Don Chaney telling wild stories about Arthur Lee Allen in the Zodiac case, and it appears that he was also a suspect in the New Bedford serial killer case. And this is a direct quotation from Carlton Smith, who wrote the book on the New Bedford serial killer. I have to wonder why he'd want it known that he was a murder suspect. In my experience, that's quite unusual. Why would somebody do that? Why do people confess to crimes that they haven't committed? In the D.B. Cooper case, these things are more well documented. There are approximately 900 confessions to the D.B. Cooper case. Like 900 people have confessed to have been D.B. Cooper. Some people give very, very detailed confessions. One of them was named Dwayne Weber. Why do people do this? Are they just jerking the police around? Linda is here saying Betty found the body at 10:50 a.m. and Eli claimed that the children were riding bikes in the area. It was a weekday when Elizabeth was found. Why weren't they in school? Well, I mean, I don't know, of course, but I guess it's the sort of same reason why you wonder why you ever see kids riding bikes at 11 a.m. But, this means, though, I get what you're trying to say, Linda. There should have been a very small amount of time when the kids are riding bikes and that they didn't see anything and they didn't recognize the body on the sidewalk. So somebody should have moved the body before it had been photographed. But I get what you're saying. But I don't really know why they weren't in school. I didn't like to go to school. And Dreams on Plastic says, yes, the Cleveland killer is an intriguing Black Dahlia possibility, but like the Thames Torso killer and Jack the Ripper being related, it's in the ballpark, but still a fly ball, maybe. Well, ultimately, Dreams on Plastic, I think the Thames Torso killer and Jack the Ripper were different serial killers, but if it turns out they're the same killer, I wouldn't be overly shocked. The Black Dahlia Zodiac connection has been in the news a lot, and I would be overly shocked if it were the same killer. I wouldn't dismiss the evidence. If there actually is strong evidence and the FBI signs off on it, and it's more than just a cipher solution, if it's more than just somebody's articulated theory, I'd be like, okay, I'm surprised, but I'll admit that you're right. I haven't seen anything like that lately. But Cleveland Torso killer, Black Dahlia killer, sure. You can find the similarities there more easily with these dismembering types of murders. Mystery Junkie says, some people just want attention and some financial gain so that they can be interviewed for books, movies, newspapers, and shows. Or if they are falsely accused, they can sue someone for slander and defamation. Yeah. And sometimes, though, people might actually just be wanting to bring the attention onto the case or something, get people to take things more seriously. Casbah says, just for laughs, it wouldn't surprise me that Jack the Ripper lived until the 1950s or 60s and ended up killing Elizabeth Short. Well, what's the name of that? Walter Bailey was a Black Dahlia suspect that was alive at the time of Jack the Ripper, although he was 8 years old. He was born in 1880, and he died in 1888. I think Walter Bailey is a fairly strong suspect. And I mean, as I understood, Larry Harnish was writing a book that was heavily going to focus on Dr. Walter Bailey as a suspect, medical doctor in the area, someone who was dealing with early onset dementia. But somebody asked me, though, recently, once this Black Dahlia connection to the Zodiac killer case hit the mainstream, and they said, what do you really think of these Larry Harnish videos? Because you talk about them all the time. And I was like, I accept that he has followed the Black Dahlia case for 30 years and he knows a lot about it. That's why I watch his stuff. But sometimes he'll say that, no, Marvin Margolis couldn't have done it. He doesn't give you the full story why. And then, sometimes people will ask a question about the Black Dahlia, and it's like, is it true that she ate excrement before she was killed and she had feces in her stomach? And he's like, no, she didn't eat it. That's a lie that was created by John Gilmore in his book Severed. But he won't tell you the full story why. And I think it's probably because he just dealt with the same questions for 30 years. But it really would be great to have the full story, or if you know some secret reason as to why Eli Frankel's information is incorrect, well, just tell us. I mean, the whole point of having his channel is he's the guy that's just giving it all away for free. Then give it all away for free. And Casbah says, I mean, Jack the Ripper could have come over on one of the boats in the 1900s. Yes, Dr. Casbah, that is the subject of the book The Bell Tower by Robert Graysmith, of all people. And his suspect is named John Gibson. He believes that Jack the Ripper was actually a team of two people, and then John Gibson went from the UK to San Francisco, of all places, on the boats. The Pontiac speaking says, the Zodiac was very clear after the Steins murder. This is me, and so far I have killed 7 people. 5 we know. 2 are either Davis Domingos, a couple, Swindle couple, and Bates, Black Dahlia, big no-no. Oh, no, big no. Yeah, mostly. Okay. On the Black Dahlia stuff, I agree with you, the Pontiac speaking. Some people think, though, when the Zodiac killer said that he was referring to the Snoozian Furlong murders. And, they also occurred in 1969 in the San Jose area, mind you, not the San Francisco area. But, the Snoozian Furlong murders were highly publicized, the vicious stabbing. Well, Linda says Larry is way too angry. Yeah. Well, you want me to disagree with that? No. I don't disagree with that. And Chronicle Waltz is here, who says, I also found it hard to believe that the LAPD would have moved Elizabeth Short's body, but Frankel is right to point out that the coroner, Dr. Newbar, noted post-mortem lividity on her front side. Okay, I'll accept that, but not on her backside, which one would expect if she had been placed there before 6:30. See, those are the time frames that are very hard to accept. And that's why, with Eli Frankel, as I understand the way he presented it is that if her body were 12 to 16 feet from the road, people might have just walked right past that, riding a bike. Okay, you see something, but you wouldn't necessarily stop. If her body were right against the sidewalk, then people would be like, oh my goodness, here's a dead woman's body that's been cut in half. Yeah, I understood that, but I mean, it's just such a hard thing to accept and to believe. Mystery Junkie says, why wouldn't Zodiac Killer have put January 15th, 1947 by Hacksaw on the door at Lake Berryessa if he did the Black Dahlia? Excellent question. The Zodiac also didn't say October 30th, 1966 by knife. I mean, he could have just given all that stuff away if he wanted people to think he's some type of prolific serial killer. Well, I would expect Alex Baber would say it's making it too obvious. But if we're going to talk about these connections to the Black Dahlia case, there is one final point, though. And yes, it does go back to the Larry Harnett. And it's a point that I do mostly agree with. And that is that when he's saying, Alex Baber is saying the solution to the Z13 cipher is when you take the name Elizabeth and you use it to decode the letters and it reveals Marvin Merrill. And he has the picture of the girl named Elizabeth that was what they call a sketch, but let's sketch, drawing, it's piece of art that says Elizabeth. Elizabeth Short is how we refer to her. That's how she's mentioned in the books and in the newspaper articles. But she didn't go by Elizabeth Short with her friends. They didn't call her Elizabeth. They called her Betty or Beth. And when you read a lot of the older content about the Black Dahlia, that's true. She's referred to as Betty, spelled Bette. Betty. Not like Bette Midler, but Betty. And it's I mostly would agree with that. But who was it? Was it Trashley who said, now, wait a second, though, about the drawing. I mean, when they're trying to say that this is a piece of evidence, that was the smoking gun episode of the Killer in the Code podcast. Well, now, Marvin Merrill clearly knew Elizabeth Short. He was a real suspect in her murder. Maybe that is Elizabeth Short in his drawing. Maybe he did write the name Elizabeth on there. Well, what if he just did that because he knew her? Doesn't mean he killed her. If you do a drawing of an old friend from 50 years ago, that doesn't make you a murderer. I mean, that means he drew somebody that he knew 50 years ago. Yes. The Elizabeth solution to the Z13 cipher, that's a different story, different kettle of fish. And as I've already said in this episode once, it is a purely unnecessary method to use to get the name Marvin Merrill out of the solution. Chronicle Walt says, I'm sure Harnish has more information about the case than I will ever know, but his Bailey theory is absurd, but he seems to be shotgun wedded to it. Well, see, Chronicle Waltz, this is what I was talking about. I mean, Larry Harnish says that there's a very clear reason why Elizabeth Short's body couldn't have been moved during that time, that her body couldn't have been moved the way that Eli Frankel says it was, but he just doesn't tell you the full story. So I'm like, so it's like, let's just hear the full story before we can evaluate it, or just put the documents online, put the case file things that he has next to him at every show, just put it online, and then let's all be able to read it. Here, look at this report. This is what I'm talking about. And I am also somebody to admit, when somebody was saying at the beginning of this episode about how certain things go over their head, when I first started doing Zodiac killer stuff, the ciphers went way over my head. Eventually, I began to understand them a little bit better. The second thing was case file documents. When people would just put the police reports online, they went over my head too. We're talking like 2018, 2019. And I'm like, oh, what information am I looking for? How do I make sense of this? Case file documents, FBI report. It does take practice to read those. And it takes practice to look for certain pieces of information. And you guys know about Zodiac Killer Just the Facts. I'm not going to dig my copy out during the live stream. That's an organized version of the Zodiac Killer police reports. But let's see. Dreams on Plastic says, Jack the Ripper's bones came to California in pieces of London Bridge, and it comes back to life to fight David Hasselhoff in the made-for-TV 80s movie, Jack the Ripper Can't Be Zodiac. Well, tell that to Francis J. Armstrong, who put it in the book, On the Trail of the Zodiac Killer. You know, some people say that Jack the Ripper and the Zodiac are the same person. I'm like, no. No one actually says that, except you, who you put it in a book. And Dr. Casbah says, Z13 spells Texarkana Phantom, 14 letters, not 13. He hinted in the Halloween card 14, PH Aries. All right then, Dr. Casbah, I'm going to challenge you on that. If that's the solution, then wouldn't another possible explanation for the Halloween card on the 14 be that he's trying to convince people that he killed 14 victims? I do like that solution, but much as I said about the Z32, I think a lot of that's just a dud. And Jason articulated that way better than I could when I read off his comment about it's just psychologically terrorizing people, keeping everyone always guessing so they don't know where to look for stuff. I mean, I think that stuff about killing 14 people, if that is what the Halloween card means, I killed another 7 people that you don't know about, maybe. But this episode is winding down now, and I would just like to say thank you so much for listening to this live stream here. Doing a true crime on the phone today for the Zodiac Black Dahlia connection. Thank you so much to everybody who participated. Thank you to everyone who left comments from previous episodes. And yes, I am going to read William J. Mann's book. I was joking about that. But other than that, I would just like to say these things will be coming up periodically. And if we're going to talk about Larry Harnish, he is launching his new series, the Black Dahlia Book Club, which, will mostly cover the live stream basis for things. I'll be doing some more pre-recorded stuff, but I like talking to you guys live and just, stopping by in the morning. And I would like to do this, somewhat regularly in the future. If I'm going to be going through something like William J. Mann's book, though, the thing that I am serious about is I can definitely do that better when I am off camera and so on. And, you can always do a take 2 or something like that. But yes, I do want to read that one. And Dr. Casbah is still going on the Z13 cipher, saying the 3 8 balls in the cipher stand for Billiards 24. In other words, the 24th anniversary of the Texarkana killings, and the name is Bill. That's a hard sell for me. 8 balls, billiard balls, his name is Bill. That's wordplay, Dr. Casbah. I want something else. But yes, Richard Delaney says, great episode, and Ned, thanks. And Marie says, hey, Ned and fellow Ned heads. This is not actually Marie. This is Meranik. I hope I'm saying your name right. Yes, this episode is winding down now, but everybody just, have a wonderful Thursday. And I will upload Cooper Friday tomorrow. Brand new episode about DB Cooper. Here on Black Box Online Radio, feel free to start your day with some unsolved mysteries. Mystery Talk in the Morning. And that is going to be all about the Zodiac Killer, the story of JonBenet Ramsey, Jack the Ripper, the Black Dahlia, and DB Cooper. Other than that, everybody have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time, okay? Good.